Hello, I'm Matthew Goldstein, Chancellor of the City University of New York. Welcome to this special edition of CUNY Honors. On almost every bus route in New York's 5 boroughs, you will see buses adorned with the faces of faculty and students who represent CUNY's dream teams and the Look Who's Teaching and Learning at CUNY Public College Awareness Campaign. These research partnerships have produced highly successful collaborations between faculty and students. Today, I am privileged to have with me 4 of the people who can be seen riding on the sides of New York's buses. On my right is Dr. Karen Hubbard, Professor of Molecular Biology at the City College, and Shahnaz Gandhi, a postdoctoral researcher. Together, they are exploring the interrelation between aging and cancer. Dr. Hubbard's research deals with gene expression during cellular aging, the basic biology of how cells age and die. She has received nearly $4 million in funding from the National Institute of General Medical Sciences and the National Cancer Institute, and has been partnering with Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center for the past 6 years. Dr. Hubbard welcomed the assistance of Shahnaz Gandhi, at that time a PhD student at the CUNY Graduate Center. Shahnaz was investigating how a protein interacts with a cancer-causing gene called HDM2. This research is relevant to understanding how aging and cancer are interrelated. Having earned a master's degree in India and her PhD from the Graduate Center, Dr. Gandhi is now doing research at Columbia University Medical Center. To my left is Dr. Oren Halperin, Distinguished Professor of Psychology at Queens College and the Graduate Center's PhD Neuropsychology program. Dr. Halperin works on the complex condition known as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, a condition affecting children and adults worldwide. Dr. Halperin has received generous research grants from the National Institute of Mental Health and the William T. Grant Foundation. With some of his grant money, Dr. Halperin was able to fund the research assistance of Michelle Bubnick, a senior at the CUNY William E. Macaulay Honors College at Queens College. Michelle works with the preschoolers administering computerized tests that measure attention and impulsivity. She records the children's movement as reported by measuring devices, thus providing objective measures in addition to clinical information. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Dr. Hubbard, let me start with you. You are a molecular biologist studying the effect of aging on cells. Tell us, our audience would, I'm sure, like to know how this very fundamental research that you're doing can affect the human condition about aging and living more healthily and longer. What are those bridges that you see in your basic research?
Well, I think one of the most important things that I've learned recently through my partnership with Memorial Sloan Kettering has been that when patients come in for chemotherapy, that the drugs that they use to treat their cancers can also cause premature aging of the whole body. And one of those aspects that I'm studying currently actually is the premature aging of the brain. And so some individuals, not all, but some, have a tendency to lose a little bit of their memory and learning as they get older. And chemotherapy seems to accelerate that process.
Well, your student, Dr. Gandhi, now connected with you. I remember you mentioning to me that when you met her, you knew that she was a gem.
Yes.
What is it that you saw in Dr. Gandhi that encouraged you to encourage her to become one of your students?
Well, Shahnaz, Dr. Gandhi, she's very passionate about her work, and I could tell when I first met her that she really wanted to do research, and that was, you could see the twinkle in her eye when we talked about her potential project at that time, and so for me, I think that's like, the best thing in the world is to feel passionate about what you're doing.
Shahnaz, everybody talks about the importance of a mentor in their development as a professional. You studied in India and then came to the United States for your PhD that you received at the graduate school. How has your relationship with Dr. Hubbard changed the way in which you think of yourself as a scientist? What are the kinds of skills and values that you learned from that relationship with her?
Well, particularly with Dr. Hubbard, my realization has been over the years is that it's invaluable. There is a very direct connection, and it affects entirely the quality of your experience as a PhD student, and I think that is directly related to what you're going to do in the future, how I'm going to treat my students, or how I'm going to look forward to interacting with other scientists because of what Dr. Hubbard has shown me and the quality of her interactions with me.
That's great. I'd like to turn to Dr. Halperin now. Dr. Halperin, you're a distinguished professor of psychology in the neuropsychology program at the graduate school, and you also mentor and teach at Queens College. When you were a student at City College, what were the kinds of people that inspired you to go on to graduate work, and in particular work as a neuropsychologist? Were there some professors that encouraged you or that sparked your interest?
Absolutely. I had a set of wonderful professors that I worked with at City College in the psychology department, Steve Ellman and Saul Steiner, who were there back then, and I was working really in much more what one would consider now behavioral neuroscience domains, working with rats and looking at basic neural mechanisms involved in motivation, feeding, sleep, and that really brought me into the world of studying the brain. And it wasn't until really after I got out of college and even well along my way in graduate school that I started studying children and humans at all.
Attention deficit disorder has become so in the vocabulary of parents who have children and youngsters in school. What is it about that field that has engendered such interest, and what are we learning now that perhaps my parents didn't know when I was a child? How are we giving guidance to this this malady, if it is a malady, and what kind of direction can you give parents, and the hope and direction for them to be parenting in a better way than perhaps they were 50, 60 years ago?
Well, I think the big change that has had a huge impact on people talking about ADHD and the difficulties of these children is that until 20 years ago, mostly we thought that kids reached puberty and outgrew it. And we know that's not the case anymore. And for many, this becomes a lifelong problem, so now it becomes much more urgent to intervene and to try to do something to change the trajectory on which these children are moving. And what we know is that many children with ADHD do just fine, a very large proportion, but there are some who really do have lifelong difficulties, and working with parents can be very helpful. Working with schools can be very helpful. The kinds of things that can really make life for the child, and certainly their education and social lives, very different. So it becomes very important.
So early intervention, diagnosis, and treatment can have very, very profound impact on the way the child develops into an adult and how that adult functions in society.
Yes and no.
Okay.
To the extent that we believe that earlier intervention is better than later intervention, and we have a lot of very good treatments now that work well for now. It's not clear, and this is why the research is so important at this point, that these treatments that seem to work during childhood fairly well in terms of symptomatic improvement really change the long-term trajectory for children. And that's really the goal of a lot of longitudinal research that's ongoing now.
Right. Michelle, you're one of the selected few who was given an opportunity to study in the Macaulay Honors College. Obviously, you're a very fine student to be given that opportunity. And at some point during this time, you did meet Dr. Halperin, who became your mentor. How did that relationship start? Were you a student of Dr. Halperin?
We actually met a little bit earlier. I was studying just down the road at St. Francis Preparatory High School and became involved in a research program there. And it was at that time that I contacted Dr. Halperin. And then at the college level, I opted to continue working with him and go to Queens College and be part of the Macaulay Honors College to continue working with him because I enjoyed this line of research.
And I understand that you aspire to join a PhD program in clinical psychology,
Yes.
and you're in the application stage, and we all know how difficult it is
Yes.
to break into that very coveted field, which is in such high demand. Was there some discussion or work that you did with Dr. Halperin that led you into this particular direction for clinical psych?
I feel working with him definitely inspired me to continue doing research, but it was working with some of his postdoctoral students that I saw them coming in with this clinical knowledge that really complemented the line of research that we were doing, that inspired me to seek that sort of knowledge to really complement my future directions of research as well.
And I'm sure Dr. Halperin would like nothing better than after you get your PhD to become a professor and to continue the very basic research, and you may want to do some clinical work along the way. Let me sort of lighten the discussion for a bit. You've talked about your work, but you're all celebrities. I mean, when I'm in my car or walking the streets of New York City, and I look at a bus, and invariably I see one of your faces. How is let me just go back 1 second. We declared 2005-2015 audaciously as the decade of science at the City University of New York, and we're very sincere about that. We're investing a lot of resources, and we understand how important it is to ratchet up our understanding of the importance of creating a scientifically literate society and to educate youngsters into fields that will be defining fields as we go forward. But how has that celebrity status affected you? Shahnaz, how people say, I saw you on a bus, I saw you on the train.
Yes, they
Has
do.
that actually happened?
Yes, they do.
And how do you respond to something
Well,
like
a lot
that?
of them are ex-students of mine, which maybe they would not have contacted me over the email had they not seen the picture. But now they did, and it was interesting because I had a chance to catch up with them and find out how they're doing. A lot of them are medical students, so, you know, that's a reason to be proud, really. Yes, I think it's another way of creating a connection and, you know, renewing old connections.
Dr. Halperin, I heard that somebody contacted you very recently who you haven't seen in several decades, saying, I saw your picture someplace. What was that all about?
I received an email about 3 weeks ago, out of the blue. The little liner on it was a blast from the past, and it started off, I was riding on the B train and saw this familiar face. She went on and on. This is a woman who I met in 1971, I believe. Probably have not seen since about, and we were trying to figure it out when we just met earlier today for the first time. Probably haven't seen her since 1973 or 74, and it was wonderful. It was great to catch up.
Michelle, what about you?
For me, it's kind of called a little bit of attention to what do I actually do. My friends know that I study science and do research with Dr. Halperin, but nobody really knows about what it really means and what will it do. So I've actually been able to educate some of my friends in that way, so that's been fun.
You know, our very distinguished Senior Vice Chancellor and Secretary to the Board of Trustees, Jay Hershenson, who I work with on a daily basis, he conceived this idea of talking about look who's teaching and learning at City University, and we decided that we would concentrate largely on the sciences because of the 2005-2015 declaration of the Decade of the Sciences. So not only do we want to show the very distinguished work that our faculty do and their connection with students, so that we have the two of you together, because professors not only work in building very basic structures to increase knowledge and disseminate knowledge, but they also nurture students to take on the next role. And so, Karen, with you, your picture is all over the buses.
Yes.
And in the subways, and I'm sure that many people have contacted you as well. But what is your reaction? I mean, do you like the celebrity status, or or are you much more interested in communicating the work that you do and the importance of the mentoring process?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. You know, initially when I was told that a faculty colleague of mine said he almost ran into the bus when he saw my picture. It was a little, you know, 15 minutes of fame was kind of nice. But now I think what I'm appreciating from it is that many of the students who see it and they can identify with me on being on the bus or the subway, and they know about my research, and they come back and they talk to me about what I'm doing, and I think that's invaluable.
Shahnaz, we are concerned, I am concerned, many of my colleagues are concerned in the United States that we're not getting enough students here in the United States to take seriously the study of science. You come from a country with a very rich tradition of learning, and India is building many universities all over that very large country. What is the different value structure that you see from what motivated you and your friends and colleagues where you grew up in India and what you see here? Is there a real difference in very basic values that are driving students more from where you came from to study? And what can we do about it?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. One is that in India, education and status and wealth are almost synonymous. And there is a direct connection in all young people's minds that education is a must, and education will be the way for an individual to take their family and their loved ones into a better place. And one of the things that is particularly striking about City University and City College and the students that Dr. Hubbard and I have interacted with is this need to educate themselves and get themselves to a better place. And City College provides an environment that is so nurturing and so encouraging. And so I think there are similarities, but the more sort of traditional approach to education that is prevalent in India is because a lot of people don't have education, so it's something that you want and that you will really do a lot to even get that opportunity. Having said that, just as a slight aside, my parents were very proud of this whole campaign. They have the picture that I took and I sent them of me on the bus. Actually have sort of talked about it to their friends, and their friends who have younger children have actually put up that picture as saying, look, go educate yourself, get a PhD, and maybe your picture will be on a bus one day. And that, I mean, I blush to say it, but it's actually true.
Dr. Halperin, you've been a professor now for 18 years or so. Have you seen a change over this time of students expressing interest in science? Is there a more vibrant discussion now about the importance and excitement of science today that you think?
Absolutely. When I first came to Queens College in 1989, there was always tremendous excitement from the graduate students, from the doctoral students, and I always had a lab with a few doctoral students in it. But what I see more and more over the last 5 to 10 years are more master's level students from Queens College wanting to do science and work in the lab, and more undergraduate students. At this point, I have probably more undergraduates working in my lab than I've had for the last 8 to 10 years. And the undergraduates are just very excited about
and
doing
neuroscience, in many ways, is the science of the 21st century. It is the science now. That must be causing some excitement in jumping in.
It really is. The mystery of the brain is, it's wonderful, and how it unfolds. It's sort of that last domain of unknown in some ways, and trying to figure it out, and how does the appreciation of the role now of the brain in psychology and psychopathology and behavioral disorders is just so central at this point, which really wasn't understood a few decades ago. Really, neuroscience and psychology are very largely merging together.
Michelle, you must have a lot of friends, I'm sure. I mean, you're a very fine student and a serious student, but you also have a social life, as all of us do. When you talk with your friends and people you associate with, do you see an appreciation for the work that you're doing, the importance of the work that you're doing, people interested in what it is that you're doing?
I think it's a talent that comes along the way. As I have learned more about my field and heard more discussions about my research, I'm able to communicate it better. And I think now at this point I can share the information with my friends much quicker in a way that they can understand it. So that way I can tell more people about it in a more effective way.
Karen, you run a big lab at City College. Dr. Gandhi was not your only student. How many students approximately do you have that are actively working with you in your lab today?
Oh, I had to think about that earlier for another reason today. It's about 10.
And are they both undergraduate and graduate students?
I have more undergraduates. I have about six or seven undergraduates that are working with me right now.
Do you ever invite, and Dr. Halperin, you can answer this as well, do you ever invite younger people to see the work that you're doing, high school students, middle school students?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I've had, over the years, I've usually had 1 or 2 high school students who've worked with me in the lab, and I've had Shahnaz and other students train them during the summer. I've also participated in the Mott Hall Scholars Program.
Great program.
And mentored middle school students. And currently I'm giving lectures as a Cancer and Society module in our own City College High School for Science, Math, and Engineering. So I'm very much interested in developing passion for younger people for science.
You know, it's interesting, we have 2 female students, and we talk about the gender gap in science, and I think CUNY is really taking a lead in the community of colleges and universities in attracting females to study science and to be successful in science. But I've always been deeply concerned about reaching students at a young enough age, because the skill sets really have to be developed younger. Do you have any ideas on that problem and how we might work more effectively in reaching students at a younger age?
I think the key thing is within the public school system, whether it be elementary school, junior high school, getting them excited. There are so many wonders in science, in whether it be neuroscience, chemistry, physics, astronomy. It's if you have a good teacher who can excite them and want them to learn, they'll just gravitate to it. That's been my experience. Now I find that I have many high school students contacting me wanting to get involved with our work.
What about College Now? College Now is an extraordinary program that we have with the Department of Education, where students in high school as early as the 9th and 10th grade have an experience at a university. Have either of you had any experience with College Now students? Is that something that you're familiar with? Or
not,
or you haven't?
But Michelle came to me as a sophomore in high school.
And you were where in high school?
St. Francis Preparatory.
That's a fine school. That's a fine school. What's ahead in your research, Karen? We have just a couple of minutes left. Anything, any new insights or recent discoveries that you're very excited about?
Well, I think actually I'm very excited about some of the work that Shahnaz started with the human form of the MDM2 gene, and we're finding that there are the proteins that I'm studying, which we feel control gene expression of proteins during aging, may have some influence on cancer. So I'm very excited about that, and it's something that Dr. Gandhi now started when she was a graduate student in my lab.
Well, I want to thank the four of you. This has been, I could just go on for at least another hour, really now getting into your work and what really inspires you. I really want to thank the four of you for taking time from your labs and the things that you're so passionate about to share your experience with our audience. And thank you again for coming. And thank you from CUNY Honors. We appreciate the opportunity to share four very special people with you, and look forward to seeing you at our next opportunity.